Welcome back. Today we're jumping into a mystery that's literally thousands of years old. It's a story that's fueling a modern-day conflict, and it's packed with tales of blessings, curses, and a sacred promise between two of the most revered prophets in history. Let's get into it. So you gotta ask yourself, right? Why would one single ancient tomb become the center of a conflict that's raged for 50 years? Well, as we're about to find out, the answer isn't just 6 feet under. It's buried deep in layers of faith, prophecy, and some really powerful beliefs. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the modern-day Palestinian city of Nablus. And this place, it's basically ground zero for a long, and I mean really intense, struggle over history, faith, and what it means for ground to be sacred. Yeah, for 50 years, this city was a total flashpoint. But here's the thing. The fight wasn't really about controlling the streets or the buildings. Nope. The ultimate prize, the real heart of this whole conflict, it was all about one single sacred tomb. But to really get why this one tomb is so important, we have to go way, way back. I'm not talking about rewinding the clock a few decades. We're talking thousands of years. We've got to dive into the incredible story of the prophet Yusuf, who you probably know from the Bible as Joseph. And this is where it gets super interesting. You see, Prophet Yusuf's story, and more importantly, the story of what happened to his body, it didn't just end when he died in Egypt. Actually, that's where the real mystery kicks off. I mean, his life story is just epic. Can you imagine? Betrayed by your own brothers, thrown into a well, then you get rescued only to be sold into slavery, but somehow, through his sheer wisdom and faith, he climbs the ladder to become one of the most powerful men in all of Egypt. It's an incredible journey. But his death, even though he was so loved and revered, it created this really unique problem for his followers. And this right here just shows you the kind of power people believed he had. They thought his very remains were a source of divine blessing, what's known as barakat. So what do? They couldn't agree on who got to have his tomb, so they came up with this amazing solution. They put his sarcophagus right in the middle of the Nile River. The idea was that the water would carry his blessings all throughout the land of Egypt. Pretty clever, right? Okay, so fast forward a few centuries. The story of this sarcophagus in the river, it pops up again. And this time, it becomes this incredibly sacred mission for another major prophet, Moses, or as he's known in the Quran, Musa. So here's why. Turns out, before Prophet Yusuf died, he made his people swear a solemn oath. He had this vision, this knowledge, that one day they would leave Egypt and head back to the Promised Land. And he made them promise, absolutely promise, to take his bones with them when that day came. So by the time Moses is getting ready to lead the Exodus, a ton of time has passed. Generations have come and gone, and nobody remembers where the sarcophagus is. The search eventually leads him to this one elderly woman. She's the only person left alive who knows the secret. And she drives a hard bargain. She says she'll only reveal the location on one condition, that Moses guarantees her a place right beside him in paradise. He agrees. She tells him where it is, he retrieves the sarcophagus, and starts the long trek towards Palestine. But, and this is a big but, this is where the trail just goes completely cold. And boom, that brings us right back to where we started this whole thing. Modern day and that contested tomb in Nablus. That lost sarcophagus, it is the key to this entire conflict. So here's the standoff. On one side, you've got Jewish tradition, which says this site in Nablus is the final resting place of the ancient prophet Joseph. But on the other side, local Muslim tradition says, whoa, not so fast. They claim it belongs to a much, much more recent holy man who just happened to be named Yusuf. So you've got two totally different, deeply held beliefs, all focused on one single spot. So after Jewish forces took control of the area, the authorities decided, okay, let's settle this once and for all. The plan was simple. Get some definitive proof by actually opening the tomb. But what happened next? Nobody saw this coming. The story goes that every single time they tried to excavate the grave, this massive, terrifying snake would just appear out of nowhere and scare the workers away. They tried over and over, but they just could not get past this mysterious guardian. So, okay, they're completely blocked by this terrifying snake. They had to switch up their strategy. The thinking was, if we can't physically get into the tomb, maybe science can give us the answer. So they brought in archaeologists to carefully take soil samples from around the grave to get them analyzed. And the results that came back from the lab were, honestly, staggering. The analysis didn't show a burial from thousands of years ago, which is what you'd need for it to be Prophet Joseph. Nope. The evidence suggested the burial was only about 250 years old. So, this scientific evidence, this hard data, seemed to completely contradict the idea that this was the tomb of the ancient prophet. In fact, it gave a whole lot of weight to the local Muslim claim that this was the grave of a much more recent holy man. So this brings up a massive question, right? If the science doesn't seem to back it up, then why? Why the 50-year war? Why do people still insist that this specific site is the tomb of the ancient prophet Joseph? Well, the answer, it seems, goes way beyond physical evidence. For the believers, this isn't just about a historical site. It's a source of incredible spiritual power, that blessing, that barakat we talked about. There's a powerful conviction that having these remains can actually guarantee you victory in battle. The whole search becomes this epic spiritual quest, and the tomb itself is seen as being as important as something like, well, like the legendary Ark of the Covenant. So at the end of the day, despite all the conflict, the digging, the science, the true final resting place of Prophet Yusuf is still one of history's great unsolved mysteries. That trail that started so clearly in the Nile River, it just vanishes somewhere in the ancient lands of Palestine. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? When history goes quiet and the physical evidence is all over the place, what really gives a secret place its power? This whole story shows that maybe, just maybe, it's not about what we can prove, but about what we choose to believe. It's this amazing collision of faith, history, and our deep, unending need to connect with a sacred past.